Thanks for joining me. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. We've turned this round pretty quick after I had, how do you describe Colin O'Brady? Your client, your friend, your athlete?
Yeah, friend and athlete. Yeah, he was I trained him for several things. So yeah, he's one of my athletes and a very good friend of mine as well.
Yeah, well, for me, I'm delighted that you agreed to come on the show, because I've known about you since Colin mentioned you on the Joe Rogan podcast, and obviously been fascinated by the things that you take on, the challenges, the incredible achievements that you've sort of smashed throughout your labors. But to have Colin on the show, and I'm releasing that next week, and then to follow that show straight away with you coming afterwards, because Colin talks about you on the podcast, and he kind of dives into a few things that you've accomplished, things that you've taken on, but also the relationship you have and the things you would do to get him ready for his challenges. So again, thank you so much for joining me. This is extremely exciting for me, because you're a man that is an inspiration to many and probably millions. But Mike, tell us a little bit about what brought you to today, because the 12 labours, it's maybe not so common over here in Scotland, what you're doing.
Sure.
and what you do stateside.
Sure. Yeah. So back in 2014, I started a initiative called the 12 Labors Project, based on the 12 labors of Heracles. If anyone's familiar with the mythology, Heracles was a man who took on these seemingly impossible challenges in order to find redemption and purpose in life. And although he was not perfect, he used his gifts to leave the world a better place with each labor that he did in pursuit of his own purpose and to find own meaning and redemption in life. So I wanted to do something that kind of overlapped that theme in my life, because at the time I was going through a pretty dark time, needed to find some purpose and redemption myself. And I figured, what greater purpose than to do something for a cause greater than oneself? What greater purpose than to do something for others while trying to find that within yourself? So I set out to do that in 2014, called it the 12 Labors Project. And to date, I've completed 8 of the 12. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed to have this opportunity and to have this vehicle to deliver my message to people around the world.
And you say that you were in a dark place. What was life like before the labours came into your world, before you set out on this path to achieve incredible things? What took you to the dark place?
Sure. I was going. Let me pause just a second. I got phones and stuff going on in the background. I should have shut all this down prior to the conversation. Just a moment.
Don't worry.
All right, sorry about that.
I've had people get up on shows and go and answer the door for the mailman, for the delivery driver, for all sorts.
Sure.
Kids have walked in, all sorts. My kids sometimes walk in. Don't worry, this is podcasting the way that we do.
Yeah, I have my son and my dog here, and everything's but we're good. Okay, so dark place. I was, in 2013, I had suffered a very severe injury. Suffered very severe injuries to my knees. I was going through naval special warfare training. So if anyone's familiar with, the U.S. military, the Navy SEALs, I was going through that pipeline, that progression, that training pipeline, when I blew out both of my knees. I tore my left meniscus and I tore my right ACL. And, it seemed like overnight I had just lost my identity. I felt like I lost my purpose, something that I was striving for, a goal, a big dream, was seemingly taken from me in an instance. And people cope with those type of life events in different ways. The way I coped with it was, I self-medicated with alcohol. I gained a lot of weight. I isolated myself from my friends. I couldn't accept the fact that I felt like I failed. And I felt like in some sense, I felt like I quit on myself because I couldn't recover in time to continue the training or to get back into the program. And I needed something. I needed something to pull myself out of that hole. I needed to regain my momentum that I had lost. I felt very stagnant, and no matter what I tried to do, I tried to lean into my work. I tried to lean into, other things. It's just nothing was fixing that void. Nothing was filling that void within myself. And I got tired. I got tired of looking in the mirror every morning and seeing a man who, I was having a one-man pity party. And this is not I was not living up to the person that my father raised me to be. And I was not living up to my own standards. I always talk about being loyal to your standard in life. Doesn't matter if you fail, you learn the lesson, move on. But did you live up to your standard? Did you give your best effort? Are you doing everything within your power and control to pull yourself out of whatever rut you're in? And I wasn't. I mean, the truth is I wasn't. So I needed to set some goals. I fell back to what I was familiar with, which was pushing myself physically and mentally. I needed a goal big enough and large enough to hold, and I needed to do it for something greater than myself, to hold myself accountable as I worked towards achieving this goal. And so my first labor was I decided to do a 50-kilometer run while wearing a 40-pound vest. Was my first labor. I was not a runner prior to that, and I'd recently blown my knees out. A lot of people said that I couldn't do it. I'm going to wreck myself. I'm going to this and that. But for me, it was beyond that. It was more than that. If I didn't pull myself out of this hole, like the consequence of that, of staying where I was worse than any other further injury or damage to myself that I could do. So definitely was in a dark place. And these labors, actually setting out to do these labors, saved my life.
What was your childhood like? Was your dad in the military?
He was at one point, my dad served. My mother also served. My mother retired as she was a colonel in the Air Force here, and so both of my parents served. I come from a military family, and then I also served. I did 11 years in the Navy. So that sense of service, a sense of military service has always been in my family. But my dad was very he was a man of few words. He was a strong man. He led by example. He showed me he wasn't much for lectures or giving advice. He kind of just lived his life and let me watch him do it and learn the lessons that way. My father was he was really into stoicism. He was really into Greek mythology. That's how I got introduced to all of those things at a very young age. I mean, a lot of that stuff went completely over my head when I was 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
Suffer more than in imagination than you do in reality. And I'm like 7. I'm like, like all right, Dad. And so, we would go on these fishing trips. He would take me on the rivers, on the river banks, and he would take me out onto the lakes in the state of Illinois. And we would spend a lot of time outside and in nature. And he would share these stories with me of these heroes. And the difference between these heroes that he was telling me about from Greek mythology and from ancient history was that they were very human. They weren't like the heroes we see today, the Marvel superheroes, where they're impervious to pain. And
Yeah.
these heroes were very susceptible to the same temptations and challenges and triumphs and tragedies that we face today as human beings. But the thing about that is that's what made the gods envious of them. That's why they were constantly, messed with and pursued. For example, Heracles was cursed by Hera because of that. So my dad was a very instrumental in being part of who I am today.
And it was a big part of his teaching, as you said, it was showing you what to do. Would he physically train in front of you? Did you get that mindset of training and fitness as a young man, as a kid, watching your dad doing things?
Sure. Yeah. My dad was a very, very hands-on. He worked with his hands a lot, and he was a man of service. So even after the military, he wasn't a man who liked to talk about what he did. He just served the community a lot. He was an usher at the church that we were at. So he guided people to their seat, strong guy, big guy. You could tell he was very powerful, but he did the most gentle of tasks for people. He kept up with the grounds around the neighborhood that I lived in. He was kind of like a groundskeeper, maintenance man who serviced people in that way as well. Very strong man, but very gentle. He used to catch birds with his bare hands, and his hands were huge like kettlebells. and he would catch them and hold them. I would always be surprised, like, how are they not crushed to death, or like, how are you not, and he would, show them to me, then release them, let them go. So yeah, my dad was, he didn't physically train me in this, in the sense like kind of Rocky got trained, or, more push-ups,
Create,
or like a
creating
military
this
sense.
creating this savage as a young boy to turn into the man you are today. But
No, no. But
see,
what he did do is kind of cut me loose to let me explore and find that within myself. And he gave me the lessons, the guide, kind of like the blueprint to do it from the mindset side.
was he big on failure? Was he?
Well, failure, it was never failure for him, because for him it was, I couldn't fail if I learned a lesson from it. If I gained the learnings from it, and whether I came back to it or not, did I take something from it that made me a better human being, that made me a better person than I was before the failure? If the answer was yes, then there was no failure. So for him, that was how he kind of approached it. He always encouraged me to do my best and give my best. And if I chose to do something, there was no half stepping. There was no half in, half out. He made sure that if I chose to do anything, a sport, a task, an activity, that I went all the way and saw it through.
Yeah. So he pushed accountability. If you said you're
Sure.
going to do something, he's going to make you,
Oh,
or help you,
absolutely.
make you or help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I ask it. I mean, I'm a father of 3 myself, and I know you've got children, as you mentioned, and I've seen your Instagram and things like that. But how do you, with what you do and the way you live your life now, and what age are your kids? Can they see and understand what you're doing at the moment?
So my son's only 7 months old.
Okay.
Actually, no, he just turned 8 months old
Okay.
today. And but he's learning quick. He's starting to see, and kids are more intuitive than we like to believe sometimes.
Yeah.
But as he gets older, I hope that I can, in the same footsteps as my father, lead by, be a man of action and few words. Let my deeds do the talking for him, because there is no lesson more powerful than the one that you learn on your own. And you can lecture someone till you're blue in the face, or give them all the advice in the world, but until they go out and have that experience themselves and immerse themselves in that and take the lessons from it themselves, then it's really not going to stick as much as just talking to them or giving general advice like that. So
And the way the world is now, when he's old enough, he just has to hit Google and he's going to see everything that you've ever done. He just has to go on your own website or get onto YouTube and he can see all these incredible things.
sure, sure. I hope not. I hope he doesn't, see what I do and feels pressured or anything to have to go and do something extreme or crazy. I don't encourage anyone to do the physical labors that I do, by the way.
Uh-huh.
This is just my what personal way in my life, in my personal journey, that I found to kind of deliver my message. But there are a lot of risks involved with it, and I encourage people to find their own labors, find their own path, find their own way of pushing themselves to that, and exploring the limits of their own potential.
And yourself, are you a professional athlete or do you have a day job that all this incredible feats work around?
Yeah, a lot of people have, equated me to professional athletes and, world-class athletes and things like that. I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a normal guy. I like to push myself, push my limits. Some of the labors I do, the cause, the purpose, the why I do it is the priority, and they just happen to be records. I mean, they just happen to break a record or set a record. I don't like to view myself as like a professional athlete. I do have a job. I'm an air traffic controller, and I've been an air traffic controller for many, many years. But I'm also a performance coach. I coach other athletes to kind of find that, the upper limits of their potential in themselves as well.
Yeah.
Um, and we could talk about some of the athletes I've coached too. I'm sure we'll get into that.
We'll get to them, but it's just now. I mean, I know what you've done, and I know the labors that you've done. But how do you come up with them? How do you pick one that you're going to take on, and obviously maybe even give us the background to taking on David Goggins' pull-up challenge?
Sure. So I don't pick I choose the cause first. So it starts with the purpose. So I know that I won't be able to push myself beyond what I think I'm capable of if the purpose or cause isn't strong enough. It has to be stronger than my desire to rest or stop, or my thirst or my hunger in any given moment during the labor. So if the cause isn't there, the purpose isn't there, then I feel like I'm greatly limited in how far I can go. So it starts with the cause. I do these labors for causes that are very intimate to me, like Parkinson's disease, something my father suffered from for many years, cancer research, veteran mental health resources, veteran suicide, things that have had an impact in my life in one way or another. And I tap into that in order to do these labors. So once I have the cause, then I think of, well, how can I physically manifest this cause? How can I, what is a physical representation of what it means to have Parkinson's disease? What is the physical manifestation for someone to feel so heavy with a burden, so heavy that their only option is to end their life than to live another day with this burden? What would that feel like? What would that, how could I physically manifest that, a small slice of what that feels like for people to see? Because it doesn't matter what I do. What matters more is why I do it, right? So I could bake cookies, and which I'm terrible at baking. Actually, I'm not bad at baking cookies. I've only burnt them once. I can bake cookies and sell them for a charity, right? You're gonna eat the cookie. You're gonna remember the taste of the cookie, but the next week, the next day, you might remember why I baked the cookies. You might not. You'll probably remember the taste of the cookie more than anything. Or I could do a car wash, right? The next time your car gets dirty, you're already going to forget about the last time you washed it. You're not going to remember why I did it. But pain is a universal language. When we watch, as human beings, when we watch people suffer, we remember why they went through that pain. We remember why they suffer, especially if it touches something within inside you. So pain has the ability to transcend genres and transcend multiple layers of the human experience in a way that people remember why someone went through that seemingly impossible amount of pain and suffering. So when I have the cause, I make sure that the labor itself is on par. It kind of, it has a lot to do with the cause itself. So when I pulled the truck, for example, I pulled the truck 22 miles across Death Valley in the Mojave Desert, 110 degrees outside. It was one of the toughest things I've ever done, one of the most painful experience I've ever been through. But I wanted to know what that felt to be isolated in the solitude. I did it for veteran suicide, right? 22, the statistic in the US, the statistic was 22 suicides per day among the veteran ranks. And so I wanted to know what the landscape, the mental landscape of the mind in the desert, isolated, desolate, seemingly hopeless, having to pull this unbearable weight, this burden. I wanted to immerse myself in that experience and present that to the world, to inspire people, to let people know that there is hope, there is a way out. You can survive, and there's no burden that's too heavy. Even in the desert, it's actually thriving with life if you know where to look. So the labors in that sense are very deep, but the physical part of it, that's just such a small part of it. That's just what you see on the surface. That's just the vehicle, but it goes a lot deeper than that for me.
Mike, tell us, I think it was Colin that actually said when you pulled the truck through the desert that you hadn't told many people. And am I right in saying it was a lady drove past and asked what you were doing and then took photos and documented a lot of it? Is that the truth? I mean, I know Colin wouldn't be making up stories, but is that extreme?
Yeah, so with that particular labor, so all of my labors have been, 1 through 8 have been publicly announced and publicly open for people to support if they wish. I don't encourage people to do the labor alongside with me, just because of, for safety reasons. And that was a big part of why I didn't want a lot of people out there in Death Valley with me, because I didn't want anyone coming out there unprepared, 110 degrees, and under the heat and suffer heat stroke or any type of heat injury because they came out to support me. I didn't want that pressure
Yeah.
out there with me for 22 miles. I mean, I was out there for the whole day. I was out. It took me 19 hours to complete that labor. But the lady, Jennifer Willis, that came and supported me, she was actually a veteran advocate who had reached out to me the night before. And she asked, she said, hey, I saw, because there was some media already out there about the labor and what I was doing. I did announce it. And so she was in a town nearby and wanted to come out and support. And at first I was like, no way, thank you so much for support, but I'd rather do this by myself. Number one, because again, I wanted that experience of the solitude and to go through it by myself for me. But two, I didn't want the pressure of having to be responsible for this woman or this person that's out there. I don't know how prepared she is. I don't know, who she is. And so she ended up just showing up at my staging point when I started the labor. She just showed up anyway and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm already here. I promise I'll stay out of your way. I'm just going to take a few pictures. I think it's just amazing what you're doing." And even then I was like, okay, I mean, I can't tell you what to, I'm not going to try
Yeah.
to stop you, but please, I appreciate it if you just keep a safe distance and please stay hydrated. And, I gave her some pointers and tips on, because I trained for this, right? I trained for many months to be able to handle the heat for that long under load. And so she came out there, and you know what? I'm so glad she was there. I'm so glad that Jennifer was out there, because when I was out there, there was a point in that labor where I hit a rut in the road. And there's nothing more challenging to regain momentum than coming to a complete stop. Having to get your momentum going again is tougher than just maintaining the momentum, right?
Yeah.
So there are points in this labor where the desert is, it's a desert. You're going to hit some ruts in the rock in the road, and which I did. Most of those ruts I was able to maneuver and power through, regain that momentum. But I was about 12, 13 hours into this thing, and I hit this rut and I thought I was done. I was running low on water. My body was wrecked. And I never felt more alone in my life than right there in that moment. I'm surrounded 360 degrees of just salt flats, desert, and it's hot and I'm out of water. And there's no way in hell I was going to get in the car and just drive and just, I don't know. My mind was going all over the place. And in the distance, I remember in the distance, I thought it was a mirage, but I see these two taillights, and she drove a Jeep, and she was about 3 or 4 kilometers down the stretch. And I remember seeing these taillights with the heat waves in front of them. I was like, is somebody else actually out here? And I remembered it was Jennifer. That even when I pushed her away, even when I told her no, even when I said, I want to be alone, um, she was out there to support me anyway. And just knowing that someone was out there with me, uh, it gave me energy. It energized me enough to get my harness back on and finish this thing, because here's this person who doesn't even know me, and she came out here to support me. And even after I pushed her away, she still showed up. How many times do we, and this is more common with men, I think, we're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to let people know that we need help sometimes. Maybe we just need someone's presence. Maybe we just need someone to talk to listen to. And even though we push people away, deep inside, we could really use that person. And how many times do we just suppress that feelings and emotion? And it took more strength for me to accept that Jennifer was out there than for me to push her away. And that's one of the big lessons I learned from that, is how many people go into the deserts in their life, in their mind, and help is right there, but they're just too afraid to ask or too afraid to accept it for fear of what other people might think of them as being weak or whatnot. So yeah, Jennifer Willis was her name. She's a great, wonderful person. I'm glad she was out there, and she took some really awesome photos and
Yeah.
videos of me that day.
She nailed it. She nailed
Yeah.
it. She got some great footage. Are you familiar? Do you follow UFC? Are you familiar with Paddy Pimblett, who
Yeah.
fought at the weekend? Did you see his
Yes. Yeah.
post about male suicide and he lost his friend at the weekend? Did that
I
make
did
it
not
across
see
the pond?
that.
He won his fight at the weekend, and then in the after fight interview, he told everybody that the Friday morning before his weigh-in, he got a message saying one of his friends had taken his life, and he just put a call, used the platform of the after-match fight to just basically say he'd prefer one of his mates to cry on his shoulder than have to attend his funeral next week. And it's just what you said there about men don't talk. It's
Mm,
it's a global issue that men, me, whoever, don't talk about feelings. We don't put ourselves out there. We don't want to be vulnerable. We've got to be the man of the house. We've got to try and keep the shoulders back, beating the
right.
chest, showing
Right.
everybody that we're in charge. And hey, sometimes people just they take their lives, or they do the wrong thing because they just haven't had nobody's been around for them to speak to, or they haven't taken the plunge to actually talk before you know, finishing things. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's a sad situation, and what you do to put these things on the map. To myself as well, I've actually started training more with dads in my local village. You know,
Okay.
I've created this little group called Dads and Dudes. There's about
I like it.
there's about 25 of us in my local village here, and it's now stretching out to other. I've trained with more guys, men, dads, and seen and chatted face to face with more men in the last month than I have in the last 3 years.
I like it.
You know, COVID is separated a lot. Look at this now. I can reach out to people around the world and we can see each other, but there isn't that face to face. You know, and that is so common in business now in everyday life.
That face to face is so important.
It is
So
important.
Yeah.
It's important. So I'm big. I'm a big ambassador trying to get people together and dads. You know, a lot of us dads, the busy work life. There seems to be a lot of communities out there for mums, the girlfriends, the wives. There are great communities there. I suppose I'm a little bit envious of that, the community that they have. So just trying to put things together myself to just get more guys and dads and dudes talking, doing things together, getting a
That's a
sweat on,
start.
moving.
That's a
Yeah.
start. I like it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come out there and get a workout in with you one of these days.
I don't know if you'd be able to keep up. Let's be honest. I don't know.
I'll do my best.
We throw some heavy weight around and run up some sand dudes. Talk to me about climbing rope. Climbing rope
Yeah.
to the height of Everest. That is
Sure.
incredible.
Again, no one should ever do that.
Could anyone do that if they wanted to? You know, what was it like? What was it like?
Yeah, so climbing a rope. So if you think about, the pull-up record. So when I climbed the rope, I was banking on the fact that I had enough strength and conditioning from doing pull-ups, attempting the pull-up record twice already, successfully beating the pull-up record with the 30-pound pack, and then I flipped a 250-pound, I flipped a large truck tire for half a marathon, and I felt good. I felt like I could take on this rope challenge again for Parkinson's disease. My father passed away the day before the tire flip challenge, which was labor number 3, and so now I'm on my 4th labor, wanting to bring awareness for Parkinson's disease. Again, that rope, when you envision someone holding on to a rope, that's a lot of grip strength, and you're holding your body weight up. And with Parkinson's, it's an incurable disease, and it's a neurodegenerative disease, and it's incurable, and it affects people's fine motor skills, or their motor skills in general, characterized by shaking of the hands, freezing where they get stuck, small steps, they become small, their voice becomes slurred, a lot of issues with the motor skills there. And all they're trying to do is hold on to the things that they love in life. They're holding on to the things that gave them joy, and things that they define themselves as. But every single day, the disease does not discriminate. It just chips away at it little by little. And I watched my father slowly lose grip of those things that he loved, the things that he loved to do with me, fishing for one. I remember the first day he couldn't bait the hook anymore because of the disease. He couldn't write a check anymore at the bank. I remember these moments in his life that were, I could see the physical pain. And so I wanted to climb this rope to give inspiration and hope to people to donate, to bring awareness to the cause, and also to build up resources and research for the disease. Because it's come a long way. There are a lot of good treatments out there today that have come a long way in the last 10, 20 years. And so with the rope climb, climbing a rope is really a full body movement. It's a full body. It's a compound movement. It's a full body movement. You're engaging your core. It's a lot to do with grip and forearm strength, and your back, and even your legs. It's just a full body, head to toe. Versus pull-ups whereas pull-ups is also a full body movement, because the stronger your trunk is and the stronger your posterior chain is, the more efficient you are at pulling yourself and applying force against only 2 fixed points of contact. But the rope, there is no fixed point of contact. It's moving, it's alive, it's fluid, and it's hard. And there's a lot of if you're not efficient at rope climbing, I would equate rope climbing in a sense to swimming, right? Efficiency is what takes you the distance. It's not really power or strength. I mean, yes, that is involved in that, but if you're not efficient at climbing the rope, you're not going to climb very far. You're going to burn out pretty quick. And so I had to, in the training, I had to really become efficient at climbing rope. That means my technique had to be really on point. But even still, with the technique, I mean, I climbed a 20-foot rope, 1,450 times in 27 hours. And so at some point, technique and efficiency, can only take you so far. It'll take you a lot further than if you're not technical and efficient. But at some point, it's just a grind, and it's a muscle memory, and it's tapping into, you're almost on autopilot or flow, some people like to call it. I'm not a fan of the word flow, to be honest, but it's more of like you're more like an autopilot situation where out of pure survival, your body is remembering this technique and efficiency that it needs to be able to endure this ongoing marathon rope climb that you're doing.
Were you awake for the full 27 hours, or did you get half an hour's sleep? How did the process actually go in the day to get it done?
Right. So I was basically climbing. I used the same strategy as I used doing the pull-ups, where I would perform a certain number of climbs up and down on the minute, every minute. And so I started out, I would do 2 lengths up and down in a minute and maybe have 20 seconds to rest at the end, and then just, either take a quick sip of water, shake it out, get my arms, and then just get right back on the rope. And I was able to sustain that for several hours straight, up and down that rope, until, I think the longest break I took, and I even had I had a tent set up, so I planned to sleep. I planned to, but just the timing wouldn't allow it. I needed to get this thing done, and I knew that if I stopped and slept, my body was shut down. So that's how much of an effort it was. So I just decided to continue and keep going. I think my longest break that day was 20 minutes. And I took a bathroom break. I ate a couple cheeseburgers, and this lovely woman named Sana, who owned a local restaurant, came by and brought me some cookies, which was really nice.
That's the second time you've mentioned cookies so far. So is that your go-to?
Gummy bears, sir.
Gummy bears.
Gummy bears. Yeah, is
Yeah.
my weakness. That's my kryptonite.
Okay. So the rope of Everest, the tires, the running, the pull-ups. Now the pull-ups, for anyone that's listening that doesn't know your story, and I'm sure they'll check you out after this, but you did it once and you blew your arms out.
I blew a lot of things out.
You blew a lot of things out on the first attempt. But
Sure.
am I right in saying you did that, but then you still managed to get about another 1,000 pull-ups while you were injured?
That's correct. Yeah. So the first attempt at the pull-up record, as we said before, David Goggins had the record. I didn't choose the record because Goggins had the record. I chose the cause, found out that it was a record, and Goggins happened to have it at the time. Which I have all the respect in the world for David. I think he's he's out there inspiring a lot of people, and doing a lot of good, incredible things in the world of strength and endurance. So he had the record. I had to beat 4,030. So he had it at 4,030. I trained for a few months. In order to do 4,030 pull-ups, you have to do tens of thousands of pull-ups in training. So I went into this very confident. I trained. At one point, I was doing maybe 8,000 to 9,000 pull-ups in a week, with weighted pull-ups, and I did a lot of deadlifts as well, just to strengthen that my posterior chain. Again, more efficiency wins when you're talking about endurance, strength endurance. And so I started out strong. I started out doing 8 pull-ups on the minute every minute. And then that slowly, after about 5 or 6 hours, I dropped down to 6 pull-ups on the minute every minute. A lot of people came out and supported. And then around 2,200 pull-ups, I heard a loud pop in my forearm. And it was my forearm that had torn. And then also my bicep was experiencing tears at the time. And I knew what happened right away. I heard the pop. I felt the pain. I felt like my arms were on fire. Like literally someone poured gasoline on my arms. They're on fire. I looked at my hands, then there started a small tear in my hands started to appear too. So between sets, someone had to pack chalk into the tears in my hands. And then after every set of 8 or 6 or 8, they had to flush out the chalk and then repack, push the chalk deep down into those cuts for me to even grip the bar. And so I decided to keep going for another 1,000. Why did I do that? Because there were people who in the back of the pavilion that I was at doing the gazebo rather I was at doing the challenge, there was a sign up sheet where people would sign their name with an amount of money that they would donate to the cause if I hit certain marks in the challenge. And I saw that people, even when I was with torn forearms, and even when my urine looked like Irish whiskey, right? It looked like proper 12. I was peeing proper 12. And you know, even though I was in bad shape, people were still showing up for me, and people were still signing up that sheet that if I hit 3,000, they donate, and it was all going to this cause. And this is what I meant by like finding something greater than yourself that's worth the suffering. And I was like, you know what? I could knock out. I don't know if I could do 1,000 more or 2,000 more, but I could do one more. I could do one more, and that one turned into 1,000 over the next few hours until I could no longer grip the bar, and I had to stop the event at 3,202 pull-ups, and I went to the hospital for several days after that.
And then, as the story goes, the legend goes, time moved on. You got fit. Somebody else came in and broke the record, and you had to come back and do over 5,000.
Broke it twice. Yeah, someone broke it twice.
Was that Cameron Haynes's son?
No, you know, Cameron Haynes, from what I understand, he attempted the pull-up challenge where he was attempting to beat Goggins' record from 2014.
Yeah.
So, which I believe he surpassed. I think he did
4,100.
4,100. Okay.
I forget his name. What his son's name is. But you had to come back and do over 5,000, and you added a bit more weight.
I did, yeah. So I wanted to show people that, you know, it's never failure. You can come back stronger after failing. Like you can take a loss, or you can take a failure. You can learn valuable lessons from it, and you can leverage that to your advantage and come back even stronger and do better than you originally planned to do. And that's what I wanted to show people. Also, the weight of the pack represented that emotional and mental burden that people suffering from the mental health issues that I was raising awareness for carry every day. The thing with these labors is, you know, I have the luxury of taking that pack off. I have the convenience of rolling the tire instead of flipping it. You know, I don't have to take a rope. I could take an elevator. I don't have to pull the truck. I could drive it. I have that luxury. I have that choice. The people missing limbs, people going through, you know, suffering from the invisible wounds of their service, people diagnosed with terminal diseases or neurodegenerative diseases, they don't have that luxury. They can't let go of that burden. They can't wake up tomorrow morning and choose not to have Parkinson's. They can't wake up tomorrow morning and choose not to have cancer. They can't wake up tomorrow and just choose not to be depressed or have PTSD. And so I wanted to, that's important thing to differentiate with why I do what I do and why I add the extra weight and why I do these hard, difficult challenges is to let people know that, yes, these are extremely challenging for me. And as you can see, it's very painful, but it's a choice that I have to do it. I'm choosing to put myself here, and I can choose not to do it. A lot of people that, you know, that go, their voices are silent. They don't have a platform. They can't speak out. They don't have that option. They don't have that luxury. So that's why I chose to wear the extra pack for the pull-ups. And I beat that record with 5,804.
Are you still the record holder for that?
I think someone came along, you know, like all records will be broken until the end of time. So I'm not really too concerned about the record-breaking aspect of it. But I believe someone came in and did break the record, the body weight record. I'm not sure someone did it with the pack though. But from what I understand, people have come and surpassed that record with body weight.
Incredible. These people walk around. Talk to us about your coaching then. And obviously Colin O'Brady is what he's the man that introduced me to you, and he's achieved some incredible things. But how did that relationship come to be?
Sure. So at the time, this is 2018, I was training, I was out of the military now, and I was training people full time as a performance coach. I had been coaching people prior to while I was still in the service, but I was now doing it full time outside of it. And I was training in Portland, Oregon at a place called Evolution Healthcare and Fitness. And Colin was introduced to me by a mutual friend And he comes in and he comes in for his consultation with me. And, he's just 150, 160 pound, guy. This kid walks in, hey, I want to pull a sled 3 times my body weight across Antarctica, solo, unsupported, unassisted. And it's going to be a world first. Can you help me do it? And, I look at him, and we have a sit down, and almost immediately, it's kind of like I felt a kindred spirit in Colin. We connected almost immediately. And I said, when can you start? How soon can you start? How soon can you start? And I felt that, just the way he presented himself and the way he talked about with so much passion about this goal and why he was doing it. I knew that, okay, well, the drive is there, the commitment is there, the purpose is there. And if you have those things, if you have the commitment, if you have the courage, and if you have the clarity of vision to see it through, then everything else can be worked out. Because physical conditioning, that's the science of it, and that's something I'm very proficient at. I can make you strong enough to go to do this thing. I can make you, I can build your endurance enough to do this. I can make you durable enough, but I can't give you the commitment. I can't give you the courage, and I cannot give you the clarity of vision, no matter how great of a plan I make for you. So when doing these things, there's no blueprint for it. No one had ever done it. So it took a lot of creativity. It took a lot of art. So that's why when I say that doing these extreme challenges or setting these goals that are world first, or things that are seemingly impossible, it takes both science and art. There's a science and art to it. The art of it is the mindset. The art is the creativity. The art is finding a way to stay motivated, to stay disciplined. That is an art form. Uh, and the science of it is, the reps, the sets, the volume, the intensity, the duration, the recovery, those things are the science of it. So you have to have a balance of both. And so Colin and I, we hit it off right off the bat, and the rest is history. I've been training him for, ever since.
And he talks about the sort of the ice buckets and Lego, and for Drake's Passage when he had never rode before.
Sure.
You getting into his house and had a wee setup ready for him in the backyard, was it?
Sure. Yeah. Again, it's science and art. The art
Yeah.
is showing up at his house at 2 a.m, and it's testing his commitment and his ability to adapt. So I mean, at the root of it all is, in order to succeed in a very hostile, extreme environments where the weather is unpredictable, where it's always changing, where a lot of uncertainty exists, you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to adapt quickly. It's hard to simulate that in a controlled training environment. But if you're creative enough, you can find a way to do it. And the way I did it with Colin was intermittent cold exposure. And I added elements, variables of unpredictability, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I changed up the set and rep schemes in which the manner in which I did that. And it just shocked his system. It shocked him in a way that it forced the adaptation in a very short amount of time, while still hitting the key elements, the conditioning, the cardiovascular endurance, the strength. It still targeted those things, but I still added those elements where he needed to adapt to the cold and to performing under high stress and pressure.
Do you have regular athletes? Do you have normal people that you just sort of put on the treadmill or give them a program, or are you just out there waiting for the crazies to show up saying, this is what I'm going to do, let's get into this?
I over the years, I've trained a very wide spectrum of athletes, from beginner to the top athletes. And I do train quote unquote regular people, regular athletes. They come to me with goals, but for me, it's more about these days it's more about the purpose behind why they're doing it. I enjoy training people. I enjoy helping people achieve these seemingly impossible challenge, but even just regular people who just want to run their first marathon or run their first triathlon or whatever it may be. If they're sincere, if they're genuine, if they have the commitment, the clarity, and the courage to take this on, then I'm usually pretty open to training those people as well. Obviously, my time is, I'm very careful with my time, especially now that I have my son. And so those that I choose to train, I'm more selective about these days. But at the root of it, I mean, it's something I'm very passionate about and always open to a discussion about training.
Can I ask about your profile? I mean, if you look comparable to a David Goggins shouting at the screens, his attitude and the way he gets people's attention, with the things that you're achieving and the things that you've obviously maybe planning now for the labors that you've got remaining, do you want this world to become your everyday one day, to sort of not have to go and be an air traffic controller? Are you looking at that, or do you like the balance of normality in a job and being able to achieve these incredible things when you want to?
Right. You know, when I'm doing air traffic control or when I'm training people, it doesn't feel like work, right?
Okay.
In a sense, in one sense, it is work because there is an exchange occurring, and you're providing a service to someone. Help prepare and coach and train someone to achieve a goal. Uh, but with air traffic control, it also doesn't feel like work. It challenges my mind. I enjoy it. I have enjoyment from the unpredictability. Every day is different, and it keeps me sharp, I believe. So the moment one of these two things feels like work, then I'll start, leaning towards the other and making that transition and do one. But right now, I think I've got a good balance between the two, because I do enjoy air traffic control and everything that comes along with that. But I also enjoy this world of performance coaching and pushing the limits of human potential. And I think the two, in a lot of ways, are synced, are linked. There's a lot of overlap between the two worlds, especially as far as the mindset goes. And I think the two complement each other in a sense, in my world at least.
When we talk about endurance and things, and I don't know where you'll take this, David Blaine, the things that he does
Mm.
in ice and all, there's magic, there's whatever it is that he does in a performance. What do you think about the things that he does? What do you think about the things that he does to his body and endurance and put himself under extreme stress?
Sure. I think David Blaine has incredible amounts of courage, commitment, and clarity of vision. I think the vehicle he uses to deliver his message, I think it's more important to to focus on when you see these things that David Blaine does, being entrapped in what is it, a block
Yeah,
of ice for a day, 24
yeah.
hours or or holding his breath for, I think 17 minutes or 20 minutes was the what he held his breath. How does it make you feel after? Are you feeling inspired? Does it change your life in a way that's possible? It makes things seem more possible for you. If the answer is yes, then that's exactly the point. Doesn't matter how he does it or the magic behind it, is what is the outcome. And if he's doing these things and people are, they see it and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And they're able to move their life in a better direction because of it. Then, I think it's all good.
It's all good. You mentioned ice there, when we've
Mhm.
skipped over, not even mentioned that you're the record holder for the longest immersion in ice.
Yeah, I broke that record in 20, yeah, that was last year, 2021 in January.
And that was Wim Hof's record, was it?
Wim Hof had it at a
A
point in
point.
time, but I think it had been beaten twice since he had it. I broke the most recent guy's record. It was a French gentleman, I believe, who had it.
Yeah,
I think Hoff did it for an hour and a half, and then someone else came along and did it for 2 hours and a half or 2 hours and 20 minutes. I surpassed it.
have you met any of these guys like Goggins or Hoff, or been in their presence and talked and exchanged notes and exchanged experiences?
Only Goggins, before the pull-up challenge, when I was working in Coronado, California, and this is before he had even attempted the pull-up record. He and I were stationed at the same base, and we would. I went on a couple runs with Goggins too. So I've talked to Goggins. I've met him very briefly in the past, and we've been on a run or two together at the recruiting directorate there in Coronado. But other than other than Goggins, I haven't met any of these other guys. But they're amazing people from what I see. I mean, I love it. I love seeing people getting after it.
That's it. That's the name of the podcast. That's it. I want to speak to people like you. I'm conscious of time. And I won't keep you too much longer. Have you got a plan for what's next? Or are you able to say
I,
yet? Has anything been announced or?
I do, yeah. And so um, the ice submersion was my eighth record, or is my eighth labor. And I'm planning my 9th labor to be done next summer is the plan for that. I haven't put it out there yet. I'm going to hold off on that till I get some more things down logistically, but it'll be in an environment, and it'll be something that I've never done before to date. So it'll be something new and challenging for me in an environment that I've never been in before.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what it is. Mike, keep inspiring, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, and the way you touched on fatherhood and things like that, and relationship with kids, and us being good examples and talking more. I think that's a really good theme, and a really important message that you've got out amongst everything else you do. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure being here and talking to you. And I love what you're doing with the dads and dudes. That's awesome, man. Keep that up.
Yeah. I'll tag you in a few things so you can see. We're 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. We're on the local beach. We'll be chucking sandbags and running up sand dunes and all that sort of stuff. So it's
Right on.
It's all go. Mike, you take care. Thanks very much for your time.
You too. Thank you.
Oh! Ah! What was my time?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. I made it. Rocky, was that okay?
1
1 second.